Welcome to another video in the Cascade Attachment Operator Series. In this segment, we'll be giving you an overview of Cascade's carton clamp operations. We'll be following the format and highlighting important points from the Cascade Operator's Guide so you can follow along if you wish. Some of the basic features on the carton clamps include the contact pads, the stabilizers and arms, the hydraulic cylinders, the frame, and the backrest. There are several important safety rules listed in your operator's guide. Of course, never allow anyone to ride on your carton clamp. Never reach through the mast, especially when someone is sitting in the driver's seat or if the truck is running. Never allow anyone to walk under your load or clamp. When carrying a load, always back down ramps and drive forward going up ramps. Make sure your load is within the rated capacity of the lift truck and attachment combination. The net capacity should be stamped on the truck's nameplate. When loading from a truck trailer or rail car, make sure the trailer is secured in the loading dock before proceeding. Recommended procedure calls for dock plates to be the same width as the trailer door. This provides you with the best access to the load. Avoid side shifting a raised load. Always center your load prior to traveling or lifting. Never have unclamped loads on the top. The most critical dimension for the carton is the height. Cartons should be a minimum of 8 inches high, square on all corners, and with the tiers of all the same dimension. The total unit load should be uniform, with the same outside to outside dimension. No loose cartons. There should be no voids or chimneys in the load. If there are voids, all the cartons need to be locked together. This load has a void but can still be clamped from both sides. This load can only be clamped from one side because of the loose carton in the stacking pattern. You should check your truck and clamp functions before the beginning of every shift. Check for oil leaks, damage to the contact pads, excessively worn stabilizers, and loose hardware, especially the lower mounting hooks. Finally, give the clamp a couple of quick cycles just to be sure it works correctly. There are many different ways to set the control levers, but this is a typical setup that conforms to industry standard practice. Move the lever back to clamp and forward to release the load and open the arm. The side shift lever is moved back to side shift to the right and forward to side shift to the left. Your truck will have other auxiliary valve functions depending on the model of your truck. Before we get into the specifics of picking up and stacking loads, here's some load handling basics. Clamp the load squarely between the pads. Your pads should be parallel with and right at the lower edge of the bottom carton. This is important. If you clamp too high, you'll clamp through the carton's weakest point and you'll probably crease the lower tiers. If the pads are too low, you'll grab part of a tier you weren't after. And if you aren't exactly parallel, you'll again risk creasing part of your load. Check your load by aligning the bottom of the load with the bottom of the pad edges. And the back edge of the load should be parallel with the contact pad and the backrest. Unless the clamp is designed to pick up pallets, never pick up pallets with your clamp. Doing so can bend the pads and make it difficult to properly clamp future loads. Don't pick up poorly stacked loads. Excessive clamping force will break your stacks and ruin product. In carrying a load, some companies prefer a forward carry when driving on a flat surface, others prefer you drive in reverse. In either case, always center the load on the truck with the mast tilted back 3 to 4 degrees. Your load should be about 4 inches off the floor. Skimming loads is one of the most versatile features of a carton clamp. Just make sure you use a lower clamping pressure. When skimming vertical or single stacks, align the stack to the front edge of the clamp. Here's a typical load pickup off of a stack. Move up to your load and stop about 12 inches from the front. Align the bottom of the clamp with the bottom of the load. Side shift to align the clamp and open your arms to give a couple of inches of clearance on each side. Move partway in and raise the clamp so the pads are even with the lower edges of the bottom cartons. Drive the rest of the way in until the load is against the backrest and apply the appropriate pressure. Raise the load so it clears the stack about 4 inches. Watch your overhead clearance. Tilt the mast back 3 to 4 degrees and slowly drive back. Lower the load to about 4 inches above the floor and recenter the load by side shifting it. Stacking a load is largely the reverse of a load pickup. Move up to the stack and stop about 12 inches away. Square the truck and side shift the load to align it with the stack. Begin raising your load, watching for overhead clearances. Your load should clear the stack by about 4 inches. Drive forward and lower the load down squarely. Release the clamp, watching for side clearance. Some people like to lower their clamps at this point and further square the load with the lower tiers. Drive back to clear the stack and lower your clamp. Tilt the mast back 3 to 4 degrees and close the arms until they are inside the clamp frame and side shift it to center. When loading or unloading trailers and boxcars, side shift the load away from the wall you are stacking against. This gives you the greatest amount of side shift when you do your final positioning. Once the load is in position, square the loads against the wall using the outside of the clamp pad. If the slot is too tight to get the arms into, use the next load to push it into place. Make sure you're pushing with the load, not the contact pads. With tightly placed loads, use your contact pad edges as a wedge to break the load free. Go slow over dock plates. If you're traveling too fast, the bump can cause you to lose part or all of your load. If you do lose part of your bottom tier, here's how you can rebuild the load. First, keep the load, or what's left of it, clamped. Never get under the load for any reason whatsoever. Build a platform slightly narrower than your load and about the size of the missing segment. Set your load on this platform so you can reclamp it and then back away. Now rebuild the missing segment exactly as it should be. Set the main load on the rebuilt section and reclamp the whole stack. If the front of your stack wants to tilt out, first try to reclamp your load so it rests firmly against the backrest. Make sure the center of the load is firmly between the pad pivot and the backrest. Check the stabilizers to make sure they aren't bent. Straighten or replace them as needed. And check for bent pads, especially if someone's been using your clamp to pick up pallets. If you're having trouble with bridging on the lower tier, check pad alignment and reclamp the load so the bottom edge is even with the bottom of the pads. Check your hydraulics if they are giving a low supply pressure. Check the lower surfaces for excessive wear. You can rotate the pads 180 degrees and exchange the sides to extend their life. And again, check for bent pads, usually caused from handling pallets with the carton clamp. If you are experiencing creasing in the lower tier, again, check for proper pad alignment along the bottom of the cartons. Squarely clamp the loads between the pads. Too much contact pad camber or tilting can cause creasing. Check the hydraulics for high pressure supply. And check for bent pads and straighten or replace them if needed. That's an overview of carton clamp procedures. If you have any questions or need more information on the Attachment Operator Series, call Cascade Corporation at 888-CASCADE.